Captain Valrax stood at the front of the command deck of the Y'Tarn warship Ravager, his purple-scaled face hard as stone. His eyes narrowed as the view screen flickered to life, displaying the aftermath of the Zolone colony's destruction. The once thriving settlement was now a smouldering ruin, its once bustling streets now lifeless, void of any signs of life. The message from the Zolone survivors was chilling. Humans. They came with gloves. They destroyed everything. Valrax's mandibles twitched. Humans. The galaxy had barely heard of them. A primitive species from a small backwater planet in the Sol system. Yet, here they were, doing what entire armadas of sophisticated species had failed to accomplish, wiping out an entire colony without mercy. "We are to engage immediately, Captain," the ship's tactical officer, Elaith, hissed. She was eager for revenge, as many of the Y'Tarn fleet had lost soldiers in the raid. Valrax raised a hand to silence her. He knew this was no ordinary threat. He had studied the reports from various encounters with humanity's forces. Every human encountered thus far was reported as unusually resilient, cunning, and possessed an unfathomable capacity for violence. But gloves? What could gloves possibly do to a highly trained Y'Tarn warrior armed with the latest technology? "Prepare the fleet for immediate assault," Valrax said, his voice even, but with an edge of caution. "We'll eliminate this human threat before it spreads further. No one has ever challenged the Y'Tarn Empire and survived. We will see if these humans are any different." The crew moved quickly, following his orders. The Ravager turned its bow toward the distant planet, where they had detected the signature of another human ship. Valrax couldn't shake the uneasy feeling gnawing at him. A feeling that this mission might be unlike any other. And as the fleet made its way toward the human ship, Captain Valrax couldn't help but wonder, what were these creatures hiding behind those strange, oversized gloves? Across the stars, the stories began to grow, each more ridiculous and terrifying than the last. The first whispers of Earth's murder mittens came from the desperate few who survived the initial encounters. Some spoke of savage warriors, others of unstoppable killing machines, but one thing was clear: the human attackers had a reputation that spread faster than light. In the grand halls of the Zorathian Dominion, an emergency session of the High Council convened. Ambassador Corliss, a large reptilian species known for their calculating minds, stood at the center of the room. His voice echoed through the chamber as he relayed the troubling news. "We cannot ignore it," Corliss said, his voice low and steady. "The Y'Tarn fleet has been annihilated. Their losses were catastrophic. It wasn't just the humans' numbers. They fought with something else. Raw, primal energy. They call it murder mittens." Murmurs rippled through the council. The Zorathians, who had once seen themselves as the galaxy's most feared diplomats, now found themselves in a state of anxious disbelief. A species barely out of their infancy with such power. It made no sense. On the bridge of the Starfall, an exploratory ship in deep space, Captain Nadia Griffin watched the transmissions. Her eyes flicked from one report to the next, each more disturbing than the last. Humanity's so-called murder mittens were everywhere, leaking through the hollow channels of galactic news, growing stronger with each passing day. "This is bad," Griffin muttered to herself. "We need to warn Earth's allies." As the head of a long-range exploratory mission, she had no formal ties to the military, but she understood the gravity of the situation. Something was happening on Earth, something they hadn't expected, and it was changing the galactic balance of power. Even the Zolans, once thought to be the next great threat, had begun to openly discuss a potential alliance with Earth, but not without reservations. They feared these murder mittens would quickly transform humanity into the galaxy's most dangerous player. A soft beep from her console broke Griffin's train of thought. Another transmission. It was from Earth. And this time it wasn't a distress call. It was a declaration. "We don't need your help. We'll handle this ourselves." Griffin's fingers hovered over the comms button, uncertain. What had Earth become? The facility in the Rocky Mountains was a fortress of steel and concrete, buried deep within the earth. Inside, the clang of metal echoed through cavernous training halls, where Earth's elite soldiers, the Fluff Furies, honed their skills. They were not like the typical soldiers you'd find in any galactic army. There were no plasma rifles, no sleek armor. They fought with raw, unbridled ferocity, their only weapons a pair of massive padded gloves, each the size of a small car. Colonel Kelsey Moore, the leader of the Fluff Furies, watched with a critical eye as her team tore through a simulation. The air smelled of sweat and adrenaline as soldiers sparred, their gloved hands moving with terrifying precision. Each punch landed with the force of a shockwave, reverberating through the reinforced walls. The gloves, a blend of hyperdense alloys and advanced nanomaterials, were designed to amplify the wearer's natural strength to superhuman levels. But they were more than just a tool of destruction. They were a symbol of humanity's primal instincts, of their refusal to be tamed. Steechet. Mike Blaze O'Connor, one of the team's veterans, was in the middle of a one-on-one combat drill with a recruit. The recruit, barely out of training, struggled to keep up, his punches wild and uncontrolled. O'Connor, by contrast, moved with the fluid grace of a seasoned warrior. His gloves were extensions of his body, reacting to every flicker of muscle with deadly intent. Focus. O'Connor barked, delivering a swift, gloved punch that sent the recruit crashing to the padded floor. The Mittens don't fight for you. You fight through them. They're nothing but a tool. You're the weapon. Carol Moore stepped forward, her gaze sweeping over the group. She saw promise in some, but she knew that no amount of training could prepare them for what was coming. The Yetarn Empire had been thrown into disarray, but that wasn't the end of it. New threats were rising, and humanity's place in the galaxy had just become a lot more complicated. The Fluff Furies were no longer just soldiers. They were humanity's first line of defense against a galaxy that had begun to fear them, and with every day they grew stronger. "We're ready," Moore said quietly to herself. Ready for whatever comes next. The news came in flashes, scattered across encrypted channels and shadowy corners of the galaxy. The Zolan Coalition, a group of races once subjugated by the Yetarn Empire, had been quietly watching Earth's rise with growing interest. Their last chance at freedom, it seemed, had arrived. Zolan Prime, the heart of the coalition, was a world of towering spires and lush, bioluminescent forests. In one of its largest council chambers, representatives from several of the galaxy's most oppressed species gathered to discuss a singular topic: humanity. Their voices were urgent, their words sharp, as they debated whether to approach Earth's fledgling empire for assistance. "There's no time to waste," said Frelis, a lithe insectoid representative from the Parkas system. "The Yetarn have crushed every rebellion for centuries. But these humans, they are different. The murder mittens, they call them. You saw the Zolan colony. We know what they're capable of." The others nodded in agreement. The Zolans had been the first to make contact with humans after the murder mittens had shown their deadly effectiveness on the Zolan outpost. Word had quickly spread, and many smaller races that had long been crushed under the boot of galactic empires saw the humans not as a threat, but as potential liberators. "But can we trust them?" asked Sivan, a giant, stone-skinned member of the Plorax Union. We've seen no sign of mercy from these humans. They are as likely to dominate us as the Ytarn." Vrelish shook his head. "It's not about trust. It's about survival. The Ytarn won't spare any of us if we remain in their control. If we don't act now, we're finished." Ambassador Kira Jansen, a former human diplomat who had defected from Earth's government after witnessing the brutality of the rising fluff furies, stood at the back of the room. Her face was drawn, her eyes troubled. She knew the power humanity was unleashing and the consequences of it. "We must tread carefully," she warned, stepping forward. "Humans don't fight for diplomacy. They fight for survival, and they'll make the rest of the galaxy do the same, whether we're ready or not." The council fell silent. The spark had been lit, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Ravager descended toward Earth with terrifying speed, its engines glowing a fierce red as it pierced through the upper atmosphere. Captain Valrax stood at the command console, his eyes scanning the planetary surface below. His mind raced, calculating the most efficient strike strategy to neutralize humanity's threat once and for all. The Ytarn Empire had never faced such an unpredictable adversary. They were known for their precise, calculated tactics, but against these humans, the whole strategy was in question. "Captain, we've detected multiple human defense fleets in low orbit," Alaith, his tactical officer, reported with a tense voice. "The reports are accurate. They've mobilized faster than anticipated." Valrax's mandibles twitched. Despite the Ytarn's overwhelming advantage in technology and numbers, the humans had proven themselves capable of mobilizing in ways that defied logic. They fought in strange formations, moving like a horde of primal predators. And those damned gloves, no one had fully understood what the gloves could do. He clenched his fists in frustration. The Ytarn Empire had been the dominant force in the galaxy for millennia. They had crushed rebellions and extinguished entire species in the name of order. Now their supremacy was being challenged by an upstart species, one that had somehow managed to weaponize their very survival instincts. "Prepare for descent," Valrax barked. "We get hard and fast. Take the cities, destroy their communication hubs. Force them into submission." As the Ravager broke through the atmosphere, its massive weapon systems began charging, ready to lay waste to humanity's military installations. Below, the fluff furies were already in motion. Colonel Kelsymore's voice came over the comms, calm but deadly. "Lock and load, furies. This is it." The first wave hit like a thunderclap. The sky was torn apart by the force of explosions as the Ytarn unleashed hell on Earth's defenses. But the humans, humanity's warriors, were waiting. And as the first Ytarn dropships touched down, the fluff furies charged, gloves raised, and humanity's fight for survival began in earnest. The Ravager's crew had only just begun to fire upon the human cities when the unmistakable sound of crushing metal filled the air. A massive shadow fell across the command deck. "Captain, they're here!" Alaith cried out, her voice filled with disbelief. Valrax's eyes went wide as he looked at the massive figures emerging from the wreckage. The fluff furies had arrived, charging headlong into the chaos, wielding the murder mittens with terrifying precision. Their presence was the final confirmation. Humanity was not just a threat. It was a force that could no longer be ignored. The Ytarn had come to Earth to crush them. Instead, they had awakened a storm. The battle on Earth had been brutal and swift. The Ytarn fleet, once a symbol of invincibility, had been shattered in a matter of days. The fluff furies had proven more than capable of holding their ground, and the rest of Earth's forces followed suit, pushing the Ytarn back with a ferocity no one could have predicted. Now Earth stood victorious, but its true challenge was only just beginning. In the aftermath of the Ravagers' destruction, Earth's government shifted gears. No longer were they a small, defenseless planet on the edge of the galaxy. They were a power to be reckoned with. Ambassador Kara Jansen, who had once served as the face of Earth's diplomacy, now found herself in the center of a new and more dangerous reality. As the galaxy's first interstellar congress convened in the neutral zone, she was tasked with representing Earth's interests, but the situation had grown more complex by the hour. The Zolan Coalition, the Plorax Union, and several other factions, all of them eager to forge alliances with Earth, now crowded the Congress halls. Each race saw an opportunity to wield the growing might of humanity's military and technological prowess, but none knew how to approach Earth without angering its increasingly unpredictable government. Kiera sat in the chamber, her eyes scanning the room of alien faces. Among them was Captain Evan Grant, the human hero of Earth's rise, who had led the Fluff Furies to victory against the Detarb. He had become a living legend, a symbol of Earth's new power. But even Grant, for all his success, had no illusions about what lay ahead. "We can't just let them all in," Grant muttered under his breath as he stood next to Kara, eyeing the other representatives. "Some of these races, especially the Plorax, they're just looking to use us. And the others? They're terrified of what we've become." Kara nodded. "We have to play it smart. We can't let the galaxy turn Earth into another tool for their endless wars." But beneath her calm exterior, there was a gnawing doubt. The Murder Mittens had made Earth a new player in the galaxy's dangerous game, but in their rise, humanity had made enemies, old enemies who were far more dangerous than anything they had faced before. As Earth's newfound power expanded, so did the whispers of those who would seek to topple it. And Kiera knew that Earth's future wasn't just about forging alliances. It was about surviving the chaos their very existence had sparked. As Earth's influence spread across the galaxy, so too did its internal fractures. The Fluff Furies were not the only thing humanity had unleashed. Its power was an unpredictable beast, and with power came corruption, both from within and without. What had once been a unified front now seemed on the brink of civil war. The galaxy may have feared humanity's rise, but the real danger now lay in what humanity might do to itself. In the corridors of Earth's capital, behind closed doors in the newly constructed Council of Unity, Colonel Kelsey Moore sat in tense silence. Once a celebrated hero of the Fluff Furies, Moore had quickly risen in the ranks of Earth's new military command. Her loyalty had always been to Earth, but the growing rift between Earth's military faction and the political establishment was now threatening to tear the planet apart. Moore, who had once believed the Murder Mittens were a tool of liberation, now saw them as something far more dangerous. "Colonel," a voice broke through her thoughts. It was Major Rick Winters, a trusted ally from the early days of the Fluff Furies. His voice was strained, his face gaunt with exhaustion. "We need to talk. About the Council. About what's coming." Kelsey's jaw tightened. She had known for some time that the political leaders on Earth were far more ambitious than they'd let on. But now it was impossible to ignore. The Council, which had been formed to help guide Earth's expansion into the galaxy, was beginning to fracture. The military faction, led by Moore and others, wanted to maintain Earth's aggressive stance. No more diplomacy, no more alliances. Earth's rise had been based on overwhelming force, and that's how they intended to keep it. But there were others in the Council who sought to consolidate Earth's power through manipulation, economic control, and strategic alliances. They wanted more than survival, they wanted domination. The Plorax Union had been courting them for weeks, offering advanced technology and trade deals. The Zorathians, still wary of humanity's unpredictability, had proposed an alliance, but one that would subordinate Earth to their leadership. "We're not just fighting other empires anymore," Winter said, his eyes full of urgency. "We're fighting ourselves." Kelsey's fists clenched. She had fought to save humanity. But now she was realizing that the battle wasn't just against external enemies. The true war would be the one waged within the heart of Earth itself. Would humanity stay true to its ideals of freedom and survival, or would it descend into the same tyranny it had once rebelled against? And in the shadows of the council chamber, those who had always held the reins of power in the galaxy quietly prepared for what was next. A new Cold War, one that pitted Earth's military might against the ambitions of the very politicians it had helped create. The war for Earth's soul had arrived. The battles fought between the fluff furies and external threats were nothing compared to the storm that now raged within. Captain Evan Grant, once a symbol of humanity's rise, now stood on the edge of something darker. The Murder Mittens had brought humanity to the forefront of galactic politics, but they had also revealed a deeper truth. Power, unchecked, could consume even the brightest of ideals. Grant had been summoned to a private meeting with Colonel Kelsey Moore, the woman who had once been his closest ally. She was in her office, staring out the window at the sprawling city below. A city now encircled by massive military fortifications, gleaming with the weight of humanity's new position in the galaxy. The once celebrated hero now found herself questioning whether the battles they had fought for survival had been worth it. "Even," Kelsey said quietly, turning to face him. Her eyes were weary-haunted. "We've lost control. The council has fractured. The military wants domination. The politicians want power at any cost. This isn't what we fought for." Grant sighed. He had seen it coming, but now that it was here, it was worse than he'd imagined. The internal divisions had escalated. Factions within the Earth government were splitting into hardliners, those who sought to conquer the galaxy and those who wanted peace. And in the streets, unrest was growing, with citizens rebelling against the very militarization they had once embraced. "We can't go back," Grant replied, his voice low. "But maybe we can find a way forward. We need to unite again, before someone else forces that choice on us." The door opened with a sharp hiss, and in walked a figure from Grant's past, Ambassador Kara Jansen. Her face was grim as she addressed them both. "We don't have much time," she said. "The Zorathians and the Plorax are ready to make their move. The galaxy is already dividing into factions. If we don't act fast, we'll become pawns in their game, or worse, the target." Grant clenched his fists, the weight of their situation pressing down on him. The Murder Mittens had made humanity feared, but they had also set them on a dangerous path. The galaxy had learned that Earth was a force to be reckoned with, but would it be a force for liberation or a force for tyranny? As the sun set over the city, Grant, Kelsey, and Kiera understood one undeniable truth. The legacy of the Murder Mittens was not just about war. It was about what humanity would become, whether they would rise as saviors or fall as conquerors. And the galaxy would be watching, waiting, and fearing what would come next.